This is what I wish someone had told me. In my Cambridge interview, I was a mess. I was really and truly a mess. The interview process was hell. My tip is to pause. When they ask you a question and you're like, don't do that. You're gonna sit there, your heart's gonna stop, your hands are gonna be shaky and clammy and sweaty. And I really wish I had had a video like this. Here is your go-to guide at how to smash your med school interviews and make sure you get an acceptance. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So for those of you who don't know, I had 3 med school interviews. My glove is broken. We're just gonna go with it. I had 3 med school interviews. I had a med school interview for Cambridge University, Glasgow University, and King's College London, which is where I now am in med school. And the interview process was hell. And I really wish I had had a video like this to guide me through on what to do. And in hindsight, if I could redo my uni process again, these are the main things I would focus on, and this is what I want to share with you guys. My first tip is not a sponsorship. I wish it was, but I had a mentor. My school signed up to this program called Zero Gravity. You get paired with a uni student doing the course you want to do, and they coach you through the interview process. If your school is not signed up to Zero Gravity, ask them if they can. If not, you're going to be completely fine. But when I say get a mentor, what I mean is find a person who is going to be dedicated to doing interview practice with you. That can be a parent, your mom, your brother, your sister. That can be a friend who knows about your med school application and they're going to support you through it. A mentor is someone who, when you have mock interviews, they can be the person doing the interview practice. A mentor can also be a teacher. If there's someone you can reach out to, get a mentor. Know what style of interview the unis you've applied for require. So all of my interviews were panel. King's used to be MMI, but this year was the first year they switched to panel. So make sure you know what a panel interview is, what an MMI interview is. MMI is short mini stations. You have like 2 minutes in each station. You answer like a question in each station. Different interviewers each time. You're not with the same people. Panel interviews are usually about 45 minutes long, compared to an MMI, which is like 5 or 6 short bursts of 2 minutes. A panel interview is about 45 minutes long to maybe even an hour. You're sat with 2, 3, 4 lecturers or senior staff at the uni, and they are asking you questions. It is a conversation. It's a backwards and forward. Make sure you know how long your interview is. Make sure you know how long you're expected to talk for. So for example, in my King's interview, I knew I had 4 questions, 6 minutes each. If you get an interview for King's, this is something you need to know. So you need to research, go on the student room, go on YouTube. People have sat these interviews and they have done step-by-step guides. When I had my interview, this is what happened, this is how it was, this is how long it was asked for. So for example, my Glasgow interview was very quick, very, very quick. They asked me about 30 odd questions and I answered for maybe 20 seconds each question. My King's interview was 4 questions, but I answered each question for 6 minutes. So the structure of interviews varies from med school to med school. Make sure that's something you're aware of beforehand. Make sure you know how long you're expected to yap for, because quite really and truly, you could be talking for very little time. My Glasgow interview almost felt rushed. It was almost like they were like, okay, we want to ask you the next question, we want to ask you the next question, we want to ask you the next question. Whereas King's, they were just like, have you got anything else to say? In Cambridge was traumatizing and I had to sign an NDA not to talk about it. So I'm going to refer to it throughout this video. I just won't go into as much detail as I will for the other unis that I've had interviews for. Third bit of advice is practice. Get used to talking out loud in front of strangers. Where I'm not the most confident person, I'm quite shy, but look at me right now. I'm sat in a public park, there are people walking past, and I'm filming this video because I have to push out of my comfort zone. I had to get used to talking to people I didn't want to talk to. I had to get used to talking in front of big crowds, in front of people I didn't know. So my advice to this is honestly going to be exposure therapy. I know this might make some of you introverts feel a bit uncomfortable, but the whole thing of medicine is talking to strangers every single day. So a good thing about interviews is that it's going to help you get used to that. What would be great is if you could get used to that before. It's not the end of the world if you stutter. You're going to stutter, you're going to stammer. I still stutter and stammer when I do these YouTube videos, but it's about how you pivot from it and how you then keep going. It can be hard talking to people that you don't know. Even something like walking into McDonald's and doing your own order can feel daunting. So little things where you're putting yourself out there, you're going out of your way to talk when you don't want to talk. These things are going to help you gain more confidence, because I'm telling you now, you're going to sit in that interview and you're going to think, oh my God, I don't know these people. This is so scary and daunting. If you have felt that 800 times before, by the time you feel it for the 801st time, it's a bit like, okay. It's like when I first started doing YouTube, I was so shy. Right now I'm sat here and people are seeing me talk to my phone and I don't feel a type of way because I've done it so many times. Now it just feels natural, and that's where you need to be with your interview prep, because you can get thrown off in the interview. So many circumstances can happen outside of your control. The more control you have in the interview setting, the more comfortable you're going to feel. And the only thing you can control in the interview setting is how much you've prepared and how confident you feel talking to strangers. My tip is what I've not been doing in this video. My tip is to pause. When they ask you a question and you're like, don't do that. You need to learn how to pause. They're going to ask you, so tell me about something interesting you read in the scientific world and why that interested you. So recently I was learning about type 1 diabetes and how it differs from type 2, and how there are lots of misconceptions in how the two are treated versus, okay, give me a second, I'm not sure about that. You see how those two approaches were very different? Me pausing and then answering was fine. They're not going to remember the pause. But me going, it makes me seem unprepared, it makes me seem shaky, it makes me seem scared. All of which are true, but my approach to that same question completely changed how it was answered. So when you're sitting in your interview and you're like, what do I say? Pause. You can pause for 10 seconds and it's literally completely fine. You don't have to keep filling in that gap. You're more than okay to just sit there in silence. If you are like me and you do nervous ramble, think of filler phrases. My perfect filler phrases were things that I could say every single time while I was thinking about what to say, and it worked like a charm. So after your 10-second pause, why do you want to study medicine? The reason why I want to study medicine, and what really drew me to medicine, is that, do you see what I did there? I just repeated the question, I paraphrased it, and it doesn't sound like I'm not sure. It sounds like I'm being thoughtful and philosophical. Tell me about a time when you faced an adversity. So a time that I recall facing an adversity, and a time that was quite challenging for me, but thankfully I was able to overcome it, was when... So I just put myself on the spot there. I didn't plan these questions beforehand. And I did stumble, I did stutter, but I'm answering the question. I'm just giving myself more time to think, because when your mind goes completely blank, the best thing you can do is A, stay silent. Second best thing you can do is filler phrase. Repeat the question back to them, but paraphrase it, work around with it, and that will buy you more time to answer. Know your basics, know your stuff. You've done your personal statement by now, so you should know what are the 4 pillars of medicine, what are the NHS core values, what is consent, what is capacity. These are basic core. What's the MDT? Like, do you know what I mean? You need to know these core values, you need to know these fundamentals. A lot of med schools will actually ask you about the 4 pillars of medicine. Number 7 is a bit controversial, and it was advice that was told to me, and it was advice I wish I didn't listen to. Everyone goes to me, oh my God, your personal statement, you need to know everything you've written in your personal statement. Not one single med school asked me anything I had written in my personal statement. Do with that what you will. Cambridge didn't ask me nothing. Glasgow didn't ask me nothing. Kings didn't ask me nothing. Kings actually don't even read your personal statement. So this is another thing as well. Make sure you know your interview style. Make sure you know if they've read your personal statement or not. Because I remember distinctly before Cambridge, I was sitting there panicking. And I was like, oh my God. I wrote about the infraumbilical midline surgery incision in uterus womb transplants. Oh my God. Again, don't take what I'm saying about Cambridge for gospel, because different colleges at Cambridge do different things, and year on year they change their styles. But in my personal experience, I didn't get asked about my personal statement. And I remember before the Cambridge interview, I was sitting there panicking, and I was like, oh my God, I need to remember all of these big words and tyrosine kinase inhibitors, and oh my God, I didn't get asked anything at all. And the things I should have been prepping for, which was staying calm and how to breathe during my interview is what I didn't pay attention to at all. So just be mindful of what's in your personal statement. I'm not saying write absolute rubbish in your personal statement and don't know anything at all, but if you've written about something quite complex or a bit of research you did ages ago, know it, but don't stress if you feel like you don't know enough about it, because you know enough to have written about it, and what you know is good enough. You don't have to feel like you need to be an expert on a topic if you've written about it in your personal statement, because 9 times out of 10 med schools are very quickly going to gloss over that topic. They're not going to dwell on it for ages and ages and ages, especially when you bear in mind your interview is going to be 25 minutes. They got to be quick. They're not going to spend 10 minutes grilling you on what you wrote about in your personal statement. If anything, 1 or 2 questions, you waffle your way through it and you'll be good. Number 8 is posture. You see how I'm talking now? I'm using my hands a lot. In your interview, let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to sit there, your heart's going to stop, your hands are going to be shaky and clammy and sweaty, and you're going to panic, you're going to fidget. In my Cambridge interview, you know I always wear my cross necklace. I'm actually not wearing it today because I had dissection and I don't wear jewellery in the dissection room. My cross necklace, me in the Cambridge interview, I'm going to use my lanyard for effect. I was sat there in my Cambridge interview going like this. My leg was bouncing and I was going like this throughout a whole interview because I was panicked. I was stressed. You are going to clasp your hands together. You're going to put them on your lap. You're not going to move them. You're not going to touch them. You're not going to fidget, because when you fidget in an interview, it instantly gives off that you're nervous. You're going to decide how you're going to sit beforehand. I usually one leg over the other. I clasp my hands together, and that's how I sat at my interviews after Cambridge. Cambridge was also my first interview, so it really threw me off. But you're going to want to sit still in a calm posture. You're not going to want to fidget, or if you do need to fidget, plan beforehand what you're fidgeting with. If you have a ring, you're going to keep your hands on your lap and you're going to fidget with your ring to your heart's content under the table so they can't see. And this is where virtual versus in-person interviews is really going to play effect. If your interview is in person, I 100% recommend staying still. Unless you're confident and you can do the hand gesturing thing and you can move, and unless you're confident, clasp your hands together and stay still. This is what I wish someone had told me. In my Cambridge interview, I was a mess. I was really and truly a mess, okay? And this is what I wish I had known. You're going to sit still. If it's virtual, fidget to your heart's content. I remember in Glasgow, I had my notebook open with my notes from interviews, and I just had it beside me on the floor. If I panicked, if I needed it, I just did a quick little glance. And even just seeing the word like beneficence or autonomy, like it just registered in my brain what I'm talking about. Be mindful of what you have around you. You can have things stuck up, you can have little notes around you to help you out. My final piece of advice is to make notes throughout your interview practice and prep. So by the time I came to my interviews, I had notes on what to say if they asked me about a time where I was challenged. I had notes on what to say if they asked me about a time when I had to experience teamwork. I had notes on what to say from all throughout my past interview prep where I'd been preparing for, especially if you're going for like Oxbridge and you have those academic type questions. I had notes planned throughout that. So things that come up typically like CT scans, so that the common questions that were asked, I had notes on how to answer them. It doesn't mean I was reading off word for word, not at all. But like if they asked me, tell me about a time when you experienced a challenge, I knew I was talking about planning culture day. That was my thing. Do you know what I mean? So take notes throughout your interview practice, why you want to do medicine, things like that. And just write down rough answers of what you can say when certain types of questions come up, so that you don't have to think for every single question. For some of those questions that repeat, you're gonna have done them before and you will know what to do. Make sure you research past interview questions. My Glasgow interview, I'm gonna hold up my hands and say this, 80% of the questions that came up in Glasgow I had answered before. I literally Googled past interview questions for Glasgow University, and literally every single one of them came up. I'm not lying to you. On YouTube, there was a video. Someone had sat the interview last year, literally word for word, just written down all the questions they got asked, and so many of them came up for me. So if you're applying to a med school this year, make sure you're researching what type of interview questions they are asking, because 8 out of 10 times, you're going to be able to answer a lot of the questions before even sitting the interview. Don't rely on this because it's not gospel truth. Cambridge was completely, nothing could have prepared me for that. The questions I thought would come up were not the questions that came up, but for Glasgow it worked. So research your med school, research the common questions that they tend to ask, and just have answers for them, or practice answering them, so that if you do get asked it, you're not like, oh my god, this question is so new, it's going to throw me off. And finally, my last bit of advice, because I've been rambling for way too long: don't stress. Don't stress. And I know it's easier said than done, but I went into my Cambridge interview. Honestly, it was one of the worst days of my life. I went into my Cambridge interview and I was so pent up and I was so nervous and I was so anxious. And doing that, just because when I went to my King's interview, I was laughing, I was so at ease in my King's interview. And I think that's why I've ended up here, because I was so relaxed. Because I just told myself, look, it's not the end of the world. It feels like it in the moment, but if you take your time, let your passion shine through, and try not to put pressure on it, that's the best thing you can do for yourself. You've done so well to even be applying to medicine, and if no one's told you today, I'm proud of you for even submitting the application for medicine. So well done. You are doing amazing. You are doing so good. You are working 10 times harder than the average person, and applying to medicine is one of the most difficult things to do, and it's the hardest degree to do, and you are asking so much of yourself already. So bear all of that in mind and be kind to yourself. Relax, breathe, do something fun the day before. Try your hardest to go into it feeling as calm and chill as possible, because the more relaxed you are, the better you'll do and the better you'll feel once it's done. So to all of you applying for medicine this year, I wish you the very best of luck. I am so open. Comment down below any questions, anything at all. I will answer happily. If any of you need more personalized advice, if any of you are applying for any of the unis I mentioned and you want more specific uni advice, DM me or comment down below and I will give you a step-by-step, like we can talk. I can tell you how my interview went. We can get into it if you need more tailored advice. But other than that, I hope your applications go well. I hope your interviews go well. I hope you get offers very, very soon. And you will see me probably next week with another video. Thanks for watching.